821.
A 24-year-old Hayden Espinosa is charged with selling illegal guns from a federal prison to an undercover police officer.
Authorities say Espinosa would advertise silencers, high-capacity magazines, Glock-style handguns, and auto-sears, which are rapid-fire modification devices that can transform a semi-automatic weapon into a machine gun. Authorities say Espinosa sold these weapons through the app Telegram.
ABC's Anthony Carlo. We're now getting some details about a group of car makers which teamed up last year to build public charging infrastructure for electric vehicles.
Durham, North Carolina will be the new headquarters for IONNA, the new company made up of 7 automakers, including BMW, Honda, and General Motors. The facility is set to feature what the company calls a quarterback lab, where each company can test out software updates and how certain EV technologies work with others. IONNA says it wants to eventually build 7 of these labs across the country. For now, it's set to bring more than 200 jobs to the Durham area. Mike Dubusky, ABC News.
Other car companies involved include Hyundai, Kia, Mercedes, and Stellantis. More than 10,000 Southern Baptists gathered in Indianapolis today for their annual 2-day meeting. They're expected to vote on whether to ban churches with women pastors and deliberate again on how to respond to sexual abuse in the church. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
I'm Bill Walter, KVNU News. Law enforcement has canceled an alert for a missing teenage girl from Garden City. Monday afternoon, the Rich County Sheriff's Office announced the 16-year-old had been located alive and safe. Stormy Wilkinson had last been seen Sunday afternoon at Bear Lake Laundry in Garden City, where she works. Deputies said a man who has not been identified showed up at the laundromat and she left with him. She reportedly messaged her parents and told them she would not be coming home. The sheriff's office said Monday that Wilkinson was located in Billings, Montana. Officials have not released any information on the man she allegedly left the state with. It's believed that he's in his 20s and from North Dakota. Authorities said he may have even driven from there to pick her up. According to a statement issued just before 12:30 Monday afternoon, the Rich County Sheriff's Office wanted to thank everyone who shared the post and helped locate the teen, saying without your help, she would not have been located. The unidentified man allegedly showed up at Wilkinson's work on Sunday, and she left with him around 4:20 p.m. The two had reportedly been talking on the internet. Investigators said her phone was found near her place of work. Bill Gates and his energy company are starting construction at their Wyoming site for a next-generation nuclear power plant he believes will revolutionize how power is generated. Gates was scheduled to be in the tiny community of Kemmerer on Monday to break ground on the project. The co-founder of Microsoft is chairman of TerraPower. The company applied to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in March for a construction permit for a nuclear reactor, cooled by sodium rather than water. It would operate as a commercial nuclear power plant. The site is next to a retiring coal plant. Nuclear reactors operate without emitting planet-warming greenhouse gases. Gates says the next-generation plant that TerraPower is building will power the nation's future. The reported birth of a rare white buffalo calf in Yellowstone National Park fulfills a Lakota prophecy that portends better times. However, members of the American Indian tribe cautioned it's also a warning that more must be done to protect the earth and its animals. Chief Arval Looking Horse is the spiritual leader of the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota Oyate. He is also the 19th keeper of the white buffalo calf, woman, pipe, and bundle. He says for the Lakota, the birth of a white buffalo calf with a black nose, eyes, and hooves is akin to the second coming of Christ. KVNU weather brought to you by Logan Extermination. Summer heat is wrecking your lawn. Bill bugs are hatching now. Call Logan Extermination for a full exterior spray. They will solve your bug problem. Logan Extermination, 752-8450. Mostly clear tonight, low around 60, and then sunny, hot around 91 on Wednesday. For the latest news, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Have you noticed your furnace filter is extra dirty? John at the Duct Hunter recommends changing your filter every 3 months. If your furnace filter has been consistently dirty, you may want to have your air ducts cleaned too. Make sure you don't fall for the social media scammers. Call a Logan-based business, the Duct Hunter, for a free quote at 435-770-4813.
We are the Duct Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
Local news and the best talk. News Talk KVNU.
Every year, when Father's Day weekend rolls around, you can count on the Preston Elks Lodge Demolition Derby. This Saturday, 7 p.m. at the Preston Rodeo Arena. Buy tickets on the Preston Elks Derby Facebook page or pay cash only at the gate. $10 for kids and seniors, $15 for adults, or get a family pass for $50. All proceeds benefit local families in Utah and Idaho. The Preston Elks Lodge Demolition Derby, Saturday at 7 at the Preston Rodeo Arena.
Here's Chad Norton, the lawn doctor, with a tip for your lawn.
The way you water your lawn makes a big difference. Water restrictions and water costs have both increased over the last few years. The Lawn Doctor offers a popular service to help keep your lawn green and healthy while watering less. One application of our HydroGuard service reduces your watering frequency by up to 1 day a week, saving you water and money.
Watering help, weed, fertilizer, and pest control. Call the Lawn Doctor at 753-LAWN or go to lawndoctor.com.
Debbie Myler, wife of Attorney General candidate Frank Myler. Candidates speak theoretically about helping the oppressed and abused. Frank actually does that. I know because I work with him. He's actively fought these battles for years, providing free legal advice to people in some of the most desperate situations. I've seen the fruits of Frank's labors. We want an Attorney General who cares. Frank is that person. Vote Frank Myler for Utah Attorney General.
This is Frank Myler, and I approve this ad. Paid for by the committee to elect Frank Myler Attorney General.
Keep chasing the wild, Utah. There's no better way to get out there than with the Polaris Expedition. With a long-range fuel tank, seating for up to 5, and Fox suspension, you and your crew will be riding from dawn until dusk. Polaris. Think outside.
Do you know a champion in our community? Nominate them for the KVNU Above and Beyond Salute. Every Friday morning at 8:30, we'll spotlight a firefighter, law enforcement officer, healthcare worker, or other deserving individual and give them a $40 gift card to Firehouse Subs. Submit your nominations for the Above and Beyond Salute by visiting kvnutalk.com. Help us recognize the champions in our communities. The Above and Beyond Salute, sponsored by Firehouse Subs on News Talk KVNU, the voice of Northern Utah.
Oh no, finish your tweet. It's not, that's fine. Just give us a second. There you go, hashtag it.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Hour 2 of today's show. A reminder, bonus hour of For the People tonight. Now, it's the Utah Debate Commission's gubernatorial debate. Not really third hour of For the People, but close. It's politics, right? Tonight here on KVNU, 6 to 7 p.m., right after the show, Governor Cox and challenger State Representative Phil Lyman will take the debate stage. And I would expect this one to be pretty feisty, to say the least. As I've said, when you see polling showing, Cox with a very commanding lead, which really isn't a surprise. The same thing happened twice over for Governor Herbert. Delegates didn't like him and nominated someone else at the state convention. Rank and file registered Republicans liked him and put him back in office, about 80% approval, or 80% of the vote every time. It's looking like the same thing might play out for Cox here in his bid for re-election into a second term. So that means that tonight is Lyman's night. He's got to get some points tonight. So I expect this debate to be feisty, to say, because Cox's team also knows that Lyman's going to be approaching it that way. As this is my last chance to really score some points here and change the dynamics of this race. So his Cox's team will have prepared him for every possibility. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting debate. That's 6 to 7 p.m. here on KVNU. Thanks to our friends at the Utah Debate Commission for making that happen. And be sure to stay tuned for that. We also have highlights. Utah Debate Commission this afternoon held Attorney General debate for Republican candidates. Also a Republican primary between 3 Republicans in this race to be the nominee for the next Attorney General. You have former State Party Chair Derek Brown. You have attorney Frank Mylar. You have attorney Rachel Terry. The three squared off in a debate this afternoon. We've got some highlights of that debate coming up later on this hour before we get to the live gubernatorial debate, which again will start at 6 o'clock tonight. And then one quick note. Utah Debate Commission held a debate for Congressional District 1 between our own current representative, Blake Moore, in the United States Congress, and his challenger, Republican Paul Miller. They held that at 2 p.m. on a Monday. And so we have the audio, and we'll bring that to you as part of tomorrow's For the People program at a reasonable hour, 5 o'clock, because no one's listening at 2 in the afternoon on a Monday. I don't know what the Debate Commission was thinking. I know what they were thinking. They don't really care about Congressional District 1, and that's unfortunate. But we'll bring you that debate tomorrow on the show. So again, tonight, this hour, highlights of the Attorney General Republican candidate primary debate that happened this afternoon at 2, and then live, 6 p.m., the gubernatorial debate, Governor Cox and challenger Phil Lyman taking the stage, and they're prepping as we speak. I'm looking at some live video feed from the arena there where they're holding this. So that's tonight at 6 o'clock. You can hear the whole thing here on KVNU. So don't go anywhere when our show wraps at 6. To start things off here, it is Tuesday, and every week our friends at the Sutherland Institute, a conservative think tank in Salt Lake City, send us a sneak preview of their new episode of their weekly show called Defending Ideas. This has been a constant theme for a while now from them, the issue of poverty, how we're addressing poverty, how we're not addressing poverty. Has our war on poverty worked? Where has it worked? Where has it failed? Etc. It's been going on for, half a century now. How are we doing? It's a great conversation. Even if you don't end up agreeing with them, I love that we're talking about this because we should never pretend we've discovered all the answers and just need to keep doing what we're doing at all times. Never. So this week they get back to that same topic again, but with a twist. You hear it referred to often as upward mobility. Upward mobility includes things like educational opportunities, chances to advance in the workforce, to improve your financial situation, or even tax policy can be part of upward mobility. Do we have a regressive or progressive tax policy? Is it lifting people up or holding those with the least down? These are all upward mobility debates. They happen nationally and at the state level, and the Sutherland Institute decided that there was something missing from our upward mobility debate when we're talking about addressing poverty in this country. And they said that what's missing is the topic of family. So, a sneak peek at this week's episode of Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas, titled The Two-Parent Privilege.
And Melissa, I want to start off by reading a passage from the book. This is actually in the tail end of the book as you're wrapping up your conclusion, but I think it sets the tone for your entire argument and what I hope can be our conversation today. You write in The Two-Parent Privilege, the conventional mores in the United States today are to treat matters of family and family formation with a dedicated agnosticism, avoiding any suggestion that one type of family might be somehow preferable to another family type. You go on to say, but when I look at the data and evidence that have piled up over decades and across disciplinary fields, I am convinced that it is a conversation people in the U.S. need to have. What those data say overwhelmingly are that children's outcomes in life are profoundly shaped by their family and home experiences. And you talk in particular about the impact of married two-parent households. So with that framing, I just want to ask you, give us your thesis, maybe for someone who is new to this idea as a public policy discussion, or maybe is a little skeptical. What's your core argument that you're trying to persuade people of in your book?
So I think there's really two basic facts that I'm trying to make sure are more widely understood. The first is that it is, and this builds on the passage you just read, it's really irrefutable in the social science that kids who grow up with the benefit of a two-parent married home, they are just at a tremendous advantage in life. That's not to say that everybody should be married. That's not to say that there aren't marriages that, would be detrimental to the people involved in the kids. But on average, it really is irrefutable that is a very beneficial family structure for kids. And we could talk about that and talk about how social scientists come to that, but that's really irrefutable. In like hundreds of studies at this point, you just see that kids who have the benefit of married parents, two parents in their home, they hit a bunch of sort of success milestones. They're less likely to have behavioral challenges. It's just a very beneficial family structure. So that's a fact that really is undeniable. The second issue is that at a more aggregate level, what has happened in US society over the past 40 years is that we've seen a real divergence in family structure, such that now this very beneficial, advantageous family structure is becoming increasingly concentrated among just the most advantaged, highly educated, high income groups in society, such that in particular, outside of the class of adults without a college degree, marriages have declined. Their kids are much more likely to be raised in a one-parent home. Women without a college degree are much more likely to find themselves in the very difficult position of raising their kid without a committed spouse or, co-parent in the home. And this has contributed very mechanically to widening household income inequality in the US, and it's contributed to an erosion of social mobility. And so both, you take at the household level, of course, this is a beneficial structure, but I'm trying to, put data behind it so that's not a controversial or a value-laden statement. And then at an aggregate level, the fact that we've had this big divergence across class and racial ethnic groups in society is a real social challenge, undermining the sort of social mobility that so many people would like to see America sort of promise its kids.
Melissa, you mentioned these two things, which the simplified framing of, obviously there's so much depth in your book, but of these 2 points of that married two-parent households are really impactful for kids, and that structure has declined with some kind of class patterns, as you've outlined in your book. And I want to get into the second one in a little bit more detail, but first, to that first one of just the impact of married two-parent households on kids. When I think of, okay, what are the things that motivate me in a public policy context? And there are many, but one of them that I always think about is this idea of upward mobility. I mentioned to someone on a previous episode that you could probably boil down the American idea, in my view, to two core things. Number one, it's about protecting your rights, guaranteeing your civil liberties, that you can live your life in accordance with those rights. But number two, it's about protecting this idea of opportunity and upward mobility, that we're going to protect your rights and equip you to earn your success, go and live your life in a way that's successful based on your work and your merit and those kinds of things. That second one of upward mobility, when I hear your arguments and read your book, to me it suggests that if upward mobility is the thing I care about most, then the place I should focus the most is family, is this idea of married two-parent households. Is that fair to say that we're kind of saying, look, other things like education and workforce programs and all these other things, other variables are important, but the most important is family. Is that right?
Yeah, that's sort of where again, after studying these issues for 25 years, that is where I landed, why I felt like I got to write this book, because I have been in so many policy-oriented conversations that are about how do we address income inequality in this country? How do we expand opportunity? And we talk about schools, the need for a stronger safety net, workforce training, expanded wage subsidies, all these things that I am all for and I've advocated for in policy papers and I think are really important. But when you look at the mounds of evidence, it's like, wait a minute, kids' background, their family background is essentially the most determinative aspect of what their life trajectory looks like. And all of the things that we talk about that are trying to close class gaps, expanded Head Start, subsidized high quality childcare, more support to schools serving under-resourced areas. In some sense, we're swimming upstream because we're trying to fight the symptoms of a breakdown in the two-parent family. And so as a policy matter, I felt like, wait a minute, we need to be doing all that, but let's actually shore up the institution that is most determinant of a kid's trajectory in life. And how do we do that? And we need to, again, because I think the reason why this has gotten short shrift in policy conversations is not because people disagree about the academic evidence, but because it feels like it's outside the policy realm or it's uncomfortable, or frankly, we're not really sure what to do about it. But that doesn't mean that's not where really so much of our attention needs to be. On your specific question of if you care about social mobility, should that be where you're focused? On both an individual level, again, we have mounds of studies showing that at an individual level, kids growing up on average, kids growing up in two-parent, married parent households on average do better. Also, all of this work now coming out of this Opportunity Insights Lab at Harvard that has access to millions of records of IRS data, so you track kids over time. That data at a neighborhood level, at an aggregate level, has revealed that the share of households in a neighborhood in the U.S. headed by a two-parent household, a married parent household, that is a very sizable predictor of rates of upward mobility from that neighborhood beyond a child's individual experience. So even at an aggregate level, we're seeing that that's very strongly predictive of rates of upward mobility, much more so than things like EITC exposure or college access or all these other things that tend to dominate the policy conversations.
Again, that was Melissa Kearney. She is a professor of economics at the University of Maryland and a non-resident senior fellow at Brookings Institute, speaking this week with Nick Dunn of the Sutherland Institute. A sneak peek from our listeners. You can watch the full episode at sutherlandinstitute.org, their weekly show Defending Ideas. This week focused on what they call the two-parent privilege. This is an interesting one for me because I'm not an expert like Melissa is. I know less about it actually than probably Nick and crew at Sutherland do, but I know enough to know it's pretty hard to disagree with the evidence that two-parent households present more opportunity for children when it comes to upward mobility. And again, by upward mobility, we're talking about both economic mobility, being able to get into the workforce as they turn into adults and then move up through it, education opportunity, social opportunity, all of that. Where the disagreement comes in is, okay, what would encourage more people to get married and start two-person households? What's holding them back? What's making them say no? What's making that more of a challenge for people? Some would say student debt and top-heavy tax policy. Others say this is an issue of opportunity and access to education. Others still say that this is something that we've gotten wrong from the start when it comes to sort of an American mentality about bootstraps and lifting yourself up. It's not always possible. What do you think? What would encourage, again, assuming we all agree with Melissa, and I think we should, what would encourage more two-parent households? We'll be back right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
As a math teacher for 37 years, I always taught by using real-life examples. I'm retired now, but I still like using examples, like my decision to live at Legacy House of Logan. They offer beautiful 1- and 2-bedroom studios, add a range of fun activities, plus new friends and home-cooked meals. Then subtract the hassle of keeping after my old house and yard. And it all adds up to a fulfilling life that's perfect for me. Legacy House of Logan on 1400 North and online at legacylogan.com.
Wonder is timeless. Discovery is everlasting. And exploration is never-ending. At Loveland Living Planet Aquarium, we cherish the unforgettable memories you've shared with us for the past 25 years. Thank you for being a part of our story. Visit livingplanetaquarium.org to embark on a new adventure and continue our journey together.
How was your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then, someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Again, this week's episode, sneak preview, rather, of this week's episode from Sutherland Institute of Defending Ideas, titled The Two-Parent Privilege. This is speaking with a Brookings Institute economist and Melissa Kearney, and the host of Defending Ideas, Nick Dunn of the Sutherland Institute, a conservative think tank based in Salt Lake City, talking about upward mobility and what they feel is missing from the conversation, which is this two-parent household, the family. I think, it's, as I said, it's hard to argue with the data that two-parent households, the kids have more opportunity. That's an oversimplification, but that's basically what we're saying here. And I think the data is pretty convincing. Where the disagreement comes in is, okay, what is decreasing the number of two-parent households? What's making it harder for people to start and maintain two-parent households? What is, those are where the disagreements come in, and kind of, because this is kind of the way I've always seen it. We have a hard time getting those on the left to acknowledge this is a worthwhile conversation, because on the left, I mean, to their credit, most people on the left are focused on, hey, look, great, we'll talk about that when we get there, but we're trying to help a lot of single-parent households right now that are struggling in real time. And I understand that. An academic debate about moving forward in a different way is great. A policy debate even better. But you still have to acknowledge there are single-family or single-parent households struggling right now. And a lot of times on the left, that's where their focus remains. So they don't have room for this larger conversation about the future. On the right, my criticism for the right is sometimes I think those on the right are willfully blind to obstacles to two-parent households, like making life cheaper. Like making it a lot easier for a newly married couple to have a kid and get through life with that kid. Things like paid family leave, paid paternal leave, maternal leave. Things like more friendly tax policy to young families as opposed to large corporations. So I think on the right there are some blind spots as well when it comes to, again, if we all agree that a two-parent household is going to create more opportunities for the children growing up in that household, which I think the data convincingly argues, then I think both sides need to take a look at their blind spots and start being willing to have a real conversation about what would help encourage more two-parent households. And that's where things seem to kind of break down too often at the public policy level. Neither side wanting to address their blind spots. This is a great episode. I encourage everyone to go listen to the whole thing. You've heard a sneak peek there for our listeners. Each week we do this with Sutherland Institute, but you can hear the whole episode at sutherlandinstitute.org. Great conversation. It will make you think, and encourage you to go be a part of that conversation. So, coming up on the other side, highlights from this afternoon's Attorney General Republican primary debate. 3 candidates, Derek Brown, Frank Mylar, and Rachel Terry, took to the stage. What they had to say about the race and to each other. Highlights from that debate this afternoon, right after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. Utah Governor Spencer Cox is set to debate his primary challenger in a face-to-face duel tonight on the heels of defeat for the nomination at the state GOP convention, where he was loudly booed by delegates who argued the incumbent is too moderate to continue representing the state. Despite failing to secure his party's nod, Cox is considered the overwhelming favorite among Republican voters statewide. The convention often favors farther right-wing candidates and expectedly endorsed challenger Phil Lyman, a former county commissioner turned state legislator. KVNU will air tonight's debate here at 6 o'clock. This evening. The 31st Annual Utah Tree Climbing Championship took place over the weekend in downtown Logan. So, reporter Cimarron Neugebauer grabbed a rope and caught up with him.
We're out here for the Utah Tree Climbing Competition. I'm competing, and she's out here as a visitor and
moral supporter.
The event gathers professional arborists from around Utah to compete in 5 different events that showcase their tree climbing skills.
It's been over 20 years since we've done it in Logan.
Scott Bunker, director of the Utah State Tree Climbing Championship, said it's a time for fun and camaraderie.
Pruning, removing, planting, grinding stumps year-round.
It's kind of a nice little break from the day-to-day.
One spectator came all the way from Colorado to support a participant. She said instead of climbers competing against each other, they help.
They're like, hey man, what's your tactic?
The best thing about these competitions is the community and networking and just the fun that it brings to the entire industry.
At the end of the 2-day competition, an arborist was chosen to go on to compete at a national and then international tree climbing event.
This year's winners were Evan Felt in the men's division and Christiana Lux in the women's category. KVNU weather for tonight brought to you by Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology for the best value of today's hearing aid technology and the highest quality for your audiology needs. See Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. Mostly clear tonight, low around 60, sunny, hot around 91 on Wednesday. Get more news at CacheValleyDaily.com.
Make laundry a snap with the large load washers and dryers at Mount Logan Laundry. Rather than 8 to 10 loads at home, get the job done in 1 or 2 with their 55 or 80-pound washers and 80-pound dryers that are perfect for sleeping bags, comforters, and other big items. Mount Logan Laundry has free Wi-Fi and drop-off service, plus they're open until midnight. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. Find them at 5th East and 9th North in Logan or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South.
ABC News, I'm Daria Albinger, guilty on all 3 counts. That was the verdict a Delaware jury reached today in the federal gun trial of Hunter Biden. One juror says the first vote they took went right down the middle.
The 6 that voted not guilty, I believe it was only not guilty till they heard. So we talked it over.
Biden could get up to 25 years in prison, but legal experts say he isn't likely to do much time, if any. President Biden is now in Delaware with his family. Earlier today, he touted as his administration's tougher gun laws during an event hosted by the gun control advocacy group Everytown. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is taking steps to remove medical debt from credit reports. Southern Baptist Convention votes to expel a Virginia church for believing women can serve as pastors. The U.S. is evaluating Hamas's demand for changes to the Gaza ceasefire proposal. This is ABC News.
In Utah, we don't make excuses. We work hard. We do what's right. We get it done. Washington, D.C. could learn a lesson from Utah and from Republican John Curtis. John Curtis is our first line of defense against Joe Biden's policies that have made life harder in Utah. In Congress, John's known as the get-it-done guy. He passed 15 bills that make us safer and stronger. John Curtis is reducing regulations so Utah small businesses can grow and you can afford your energy bills. And as always, he's fighting for American energy dominance as our champion for affordable, reliable, and clean energy. When Utah thrives, America thrives. John Curtis knows that, and in the U.S. Senate, he'll teach Washington how we do it in Utah. John Curtis, working hard and getting it done the Utah way. ClearPath Action Fund paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. ClearPathActionFund.org.
Think you've got what it takes to be a backyard barbecue champion? Bring your red-hot skills to the American West Heritage Center for the 3rd Annual Cache Smokeout, July 20th. Take your shot at part of the $10,000 purse with ribs, chicken, brisket, or pork. Smoke 2 or all 4 meats to impress our professional judges. This ain't your mama's barbecue. Register your team at CacheSmokeout.com. That's CacheSmokeout.com. And we'll see you July 20th at the American West Heritage Center.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Coming up, gubernatorial debate here on KVNU, 6 to 7 p.m. tonight. Might go a little long. Wouldn't be surprised. Governor Cox and challenger Phil Lyman taking the stage right at 6. And this is courtesy of our friends at the Utah Debate Commission. We'll be airing the entire thing, 6 to 7 p.m. look at it as a third hour of For the People. You're welcome. And then tomorrow on the program, we'll bring you the Congressional District 1 debate. This actually happened in the afternoon on Monday, and I'm still kind of offended that the Utah Debate Commission decided to do that, because who's listening at 2 in the afternoon on a Monday, first day of the week? That's when they decided to shove Congressional District 1's debate between Congressman Blake Moore and challenger Paul Miller. So we've got the audio of that. Tomorrow on the program, we'll bring it to you at a much more reasonable time, the 5 o'clock hour, second hour of our show tomorrow. But again, tonight, 6 to 7 p.m. live, the gubernatorial debate with Governor Cox and State Representative Phil Lyman, the challenger in this race, taking place here on our airwaves. This afternoon, the Utah Debate Commission hosted the Utah Attorney General Republican primary debate. This was between Derek Brown, former Utah GOP chair, newcomer Frank Mylar, and newcomer Rachel Terry. This was the first and only debate between these three, both vying for the Republican nomination. This race, like the United States Senate and gubernatorial race, is going to be decided in this primary. A Democrat's not winning this one this year. Well, I mean, if a Democrat were going to win a statewide race this year, it would most likely be the Attorney General race, because the last three Attorney General's offices under three different Attorney Generals have been so plagued with scandal and embarrassment. So this is probably the biggest opportunity for Democrats to win a statewide race, but I don't think it's going to happen. That said, this is an important primary. So it is with pleasure that we bring you some highlights. This is Utah's top cop, the Attorney General spot. But again, this is an office that, from Mark Shurtleff to John Swallow, and then unfortunately the person who was going to clean it all up, Sean Reyes, this is an office that has been plagued with scandal, with embarrassment, with bad judgment in who to associate with and hang out with by three attorney generals in a row. So needless to say, that was a common theme at this afternoon's debate between these three Republican candidates. Again, Derek Brown, Frank Mylar, and Rachel Terry. Here are some highlights from their opening remarks, starting with a newcomer to the political scene, Frank Mylar.
I'm the most seasoned candidate in this race. I've been practicing law for over 36 years. I'm the only one that's actually worked for over 12 years in the Attorney General's office, and I work for every major every major aspect of that office, including criminal defense. Criminal prosecution, but I've also done criminal defense. I've also been in private practice for over 24 years and done a lot of constitutional cases at all levels of court, up to the U.S. Supreme Court, 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, and many trial cases. I think that the other thing is that I think that my clients, my opposition, they have some good experiences. Derek's is a lot in the legislative branch, and Rachel's is a lot in the executive branch in different areas. Most of their careers have been in those areas, whereas longer than they've actually practiced law, I've had my own law firm for the last 24 years in addition to the 12 years in the AG's office.
Okay, thank you very much. Mrs. Terry, your turn now. What makes you the most qualified candidate for this position?
Well, first, thank you for organizing this debate, and thank you to everyone who has tuned in and listening and for engaging in the Attorney General's race. The Attorney General impacts every person in the state of Utah. My career has led me to this place where I am ready to hit the ground running as your next Attorney General. I started practicing law about 20 years ago and started in private practice. Then I spent 2 years at the Board of Education, where I prosecuted educator misconduct. I then worked for 7 years at the Attorney General's office, where I got to handle some of the most significant cases in our state's history. I advocated for cities and towns across the state, and now I'm the director of a state agency, where I oversee a large team of attorneys and professionals whose sole responsibility is to protect the state of Utah. I've been doing this work long before there was a title or prestige associated with it. This is the work that I love. This is the work that I want to do, and I will focus on you and the work and nothing else.
All right, Mr. Brown, the final minute on this topic will be yours. What is it that makes you the best candidate for this job?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you to the Debate Commission for all the work that you've done. As I've traveled the state, the most common question I get, interestingly, is what does the Attorney General do? What is the role? And the answer it is your attorney. it matters to you. It matters to families in Utah because you're effectively running the largest law firm in the state of Utah. There's over 500 people that work at the Attorney General's office, which means it requires a combination of legal skills, which I have. I've practiced law for two of the most prestigious law firms in the country and clerked for a federal judge. It requires political know-how and work with the press. And I'm the only person here who's been an elected official and has understood those dynamics. I've been legal counsel for 2 United States senators. But more importantly, it requires leadership skills. A lot of you know me from my time serving as chairman of the Utah Republican Party. That's why I've earned the support and endorsement of individuals like both Spencer Cox and Mike Lee for my track record of support.
Okay, thank you very much. Now on to the next question, and the first response will go to Mrs. Terry. Previous administrations have come under intense and extensive criticism from the public. For things like associations, the way they manage time, among other issues. What would you do to repair public trust in this office if you were elected?
This question is consistent with what Utahns have been telling me all along, that their biggest concern for the next Attorney General is that it be someone they can trust. And if you want to stay out of trouble, don't go looking for it. It means staying focused on the work and nothing but the work. This is what I want to do. I've been working to advocate and protect Utahns for the last decade and for 20 years of my career. And it also means not bringing conflicts of interest to the office. One of my concerns is that Mr. Brown has been lobbying for some of the very corporations that are being sued and investigated by the Attorney General's office, such as representing Facebook since 2017, which is part of the social media litigation, and also having received money from the tobacco lobby when the Attorney General's office is the one administering the settlement proceeds from the tobacco settlements. Making sure that we have someone in the office who doesn't bring scandal, who doesn't bring conflicts, is the beginning to creating a relationship of trust and transparency between the Attorney General and the public.
Mr. Brown, you're up next.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's not entirely accurate, and frankly, accuracy matters.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and give some rebuttal time for this question. But first off, let's start with the question, and then we'll come back and go to rebuttal time for that. But first off, explain what you would do to repair public trust in the office.
Well, I think the critical aspect here is transparency. When I was an elected official, one of the things I learned is you don't just follow the law, and you don't just do what's ethical. There's a higher standard, which is reaching out and having people proactively doing things to create trust for the individuals in the community. And so that's what I would bring to this. When I was in the legislature, in fact, I sponsored a bill specifically dealing with transparency so that individuals know what's going on and understand what takes place in the office. A couple of the other things I did when I both worked with Senator Mike Lee and also that I did when I've worked with other individuals and been an elected official is I've done town halls, I've reached out proactively, I've run a constituent services program, and those are all the kinds of things that you need to do to create trust. It's not enough to simply stay out of trouble. You have to proactively do things which will create trust for the individuals in the state of Utah. And the Attorney General owes it to the citizens.
Okay. Again, we will come back to that previous comment. Mr. Mylar, your thoughts first on repairing public trust in the office.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the problems have stemmed from the different people that support sometimes the candidates. I do not have large corporations. I don't have lobbyists. I don't have all these credit unions, Zions Bank, and all these people are not supporting my campaign. I'm actually not even asking for donations from those groups because you're beholden to them. What's priceless is nobody owns me going into the office. No senator, no legislator, no governor. Nobody owns me. I can actually be independent. The other thing is I've been an attorney for almost 37 years now, and actually that's my focus, is being a good attorney and a good independent attorney. And we run conflicts when we have cases in the office. I want somebody in the AG's office to be actually in charge of looking for conflicts across the board, including me. because if someone comes to my table and I've received a donation from them, I either can't take that or I need to send it back.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll go to a 30-second rebuttal time since, Mr. Brown, you were specifically named during that conversation. Respond to Mrs. Terry's words as you see fit.
I appreciate that. And what she said isn't entirely accurate. I don't still represent them. So there is no conflict. And she, of course, knows that. She's hoping, frankly, that you don't know that. But the reality is I did really good legal work for some of the largest companies that operate here in the state of Utah, dealing with one of the most critical issues we have, which is social media. And in fact, the governor and the legislators who've been pushing and advocating to hold them accountable have all endorsed me in this race. So if there's some sort of conflict, it's not something that they're obviously concerned with, because there isn't.
Thank you. Each candidate will get 30 seconds. That's the rules of this debate. So, Mr. Myler, you will also get an additional 30 seconds on this topic.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is I'm not a politician. You know, and we get people into their politicians. They're looking for stepping stones. I've been an attorney my entire career. I'm going to only be an attorney. This is not a stepping stone to some other fancy office, either senator or governor and things like that. I'm probably too old to think about those things, but I'm old enough to have a little bit more wisdom and experience than my competitors, actually a lot more. And I think that is what is going to carry the day in terms of steering clear of these kinds of pitfalls.
Mrs. Terry, 30 seconds for you.
Yes. So again, it's about being focused on the work. And the work of the Attorney General's office is to litigate and defend the state of Utah, which is something that I've done for a decade. And as I've looked at the record, as I have researched the attorneys and the court dockets across the country, there are a lot of cases with my name on it. There are a lot of cases with Mr. Mylar's name on it. We are the practicing attorneys in this race. I have not seen those with Derek Brown's name on them. And it's important that the public understands that when he was representing Facebook, he wasn't representing the children of Utah.
All right, we're going to move on to a new question, and this one is centered around priorities as Attorney General. If you were elected, what would your priorities be, and more importantly, how would you determine what cases you would be willing to take up? Mr. Brown, the first response is yours.
Thank you. There are three issues that I'm focusing on. And first is protecting children, protecting the most vulnerable, protecting those in Utah who are most in need of that help. The second issue is dealing with the overreach of the federal government. This is something that I've dealt with in my private practice as a legislator working for United States senators. The federal government, by and large, is now controlling so much of the state of Utah, and it's the role of the Attorney General to proactively represent the state of Utah and push back against that. And the third thing I would do is bring reforms to this office to increase things like transparency and to increase the resources that they need. This needs to be the most effective, most prestigious, most well-run law firm in the state of Utah. I've worked with the legislature. The Speaker of the House and the Senate President both endorsed me in this race, and I've talked with them about bringing resources to this office if I'm elected. So those are my main three priorities and why I'm running.
Okay, Mr. Mylar, that question now turns to you. How would you determine what cases to pursue?
Sure. The first, the most obvious one to me is reinstating what Title IX is supposed to be. I'm going to defend women's sports, bathrooms, and showers without exceptions. There should not be exceptions. I'm sorry. We can't just, we've got to start looking at the rights of these girls who privacy and religious freedom and their safety is being invaded in the name of political correctness. So that is one thing that I will work hard on. I was listening to a podcast today, a CLE, on this very subject about fighting these issues, and several of the other states are doing it, and we're not doing it here like we need to do it. The other thing is fighting the feds. I've already filed a U.S. Supreme Court brief in April fighting the feds in eastern Utah. So this is not new to me. I will carry that on. The other thing is immigration. People dump people in our state at midnight by airline flights and by bus rides, and we need to stop that. That is nonsense. We need to send them back, but we certainly should not allow it.
Mrs. Terry, talk to us about how you would assess a case and whether or not you would take it up.
Well, my top priority as your Attorney General will be creating trust and transparency in the Attorney General's office. And that means being accessible, open, and responsive for the decisions that I make as your Attorney General. And that includes which cases that we pursue and which ones that we don't. There are criminal cases that are important that we need to prosecute because that is how we'll protect children, that's how we protect the elderly, and it's how we keep our streets safe from whether it be prosecuting gang violence or fentanyl or domestic violence or sexual assault. And then the other is fighting the federal overreach in education, in public lands, and in energy. These are the issues that have the most direct impact on our families because when energy is more expensive, it's more expensive for us as family. When we lock Utahns out of public lands, then that means that our agriculture, our energy is put at risk, which is a huge part of the culture and economy of the state of Utah. And I will be accessible and responsive in explaining all my positions as your Attorney General.
All right, turning now to a theme that has already been brought up in this discussion, and specifically TikTok. The state of Utah has recently filed a second suit against the platform, claiming that it allows for young users to be sexually exploited and other illegal activity. If you were elected, how would you pursue this case? And not only this case, but how would you pursue other social media platforms as well? Mr. Mylar, you are the first on this one.
Absolutely. As I pursue these cases, I'm not going to assume that Utah has all the knowledge in the world in these issues. I'm going to bring in groups that I've worked with before, like the Alliance Defending Freedom, American Family Association, American Center for Law and Justice. These are some of the groups that are actually on the cutting edge of fighting these battles all over the country. I'm an Honor Corps attorney with Alliance Defending Freedom because I've fought a lot of these cases and not charged people for them. They help out these state agencies. And so I'm going to also do that. I solemnly will do everything I can to protect children, not only from being predators on things like TikTok, but also in the libraries of schools. We should not have sexually explicit materials in the schools. And I do believe that there's an AG opinion that was issued on this that's in error. Unfortunately, that AG opinion basically relied upon a minority decision from 3 U.S. Supreme Court justices to try to make policy in Utah. And so we do need to clamp down on that to protect children.
Okay. Mrs. Terry, you're up next. How would you approach the TikTok lawsuit currently underway?
Protecting children from the harms of social media is a top priority. I have 13-year-old twins. And I know, based on talking to them and what their friends are looking at and seeing, that social media is harming our children. And we don't just know that, the social media companies know that. They know, and they have known for a long time, that they are harming children. In fact, that's why the second lawsuit is being brought, is because as the discovery process was being done at the Attorney General's office of the original lawsuit, they discovered that these social media companies know exactly what they're doing. And so in order to fight that, we have to continue this litigation. We need to get at the heart of what they're doing and why. And further to that is making sure that the Attorney General, who's making the decisions and is in the room and deciding how we pursue these kinds of cases, is someone who has never worked for a social media company and it does not have any conflicts as we navigate these important issues to protect our children from online harms of social media.
Again, highlights there from this afternoon's Utah Attorney General Republican primary. You heard their different answers to 3 different questions from 3 different candidates: Derek Brown, Frank Mylar, and Rachel Terry. If you'd like to know more about them all, I've linked to all of their campaign sites on our Facebook page. I have reached out to all 3 campaigns, and we'll be speaking with them one by one next week on the show. But some highlights there. That took place today at 2 in the afternoon. You can watch the entire thing at UtahDebateCommission.org. And we are prepping now for the gubernatorial debate. This is the one everyone has been waiting for. Again, with some of the polling where things are at, expect this debate to be feisty tonight. This is challenger Phil Lyman's really his biggest shot to score some points in a race that appears, from the polling at least, to be pretty lopsided for the incumbent, for Governor Cox. So this debate tonight is going to make or break for the challenger. The governor's team knows that as well, so they've prepped him for every possible scenario. It's going to be an exciting one to watch, to say the least. And that is coming up in just a few minutes here, 6 to 7 p.m. again, live gubernatorial debate with the incumbent in the race, Republican Governor Spencer Cox, and the challenger, Republican state lawmaker Phil Lyman, taking place here on our airwaves. I'm excited to see how this plays out. It's been one of the races, I think, that has overshadowed all others, but these other races are important as well. Attorney General, of course, you heard there from the candidates. 3 Attorney Generals in a row leaving that office in, not so great of shape and a bit tarnished. So these 3 candidates all are vying for your votes on the argument that they would be best to clean up the mess, which is also what Sean Reyes ran on many years ago. I don't know what it is about this office, but I'm hoping one of these 3 is finally the one, because Utah's top cop, kind of an important position. So get to know the candidates, and of course, don't forget to vote, and stay tuned. Coming up in just a few minutes here on KVNU, the gubernatorial debate live. That's right. Just a few minutes here on KVNU Logan.
Are you in need of excellent surgical care? Budge Clinic General Surgery offers the future of surgery with state-of-the-art robotic-assisted procedures. From cancer treatments to surgical needs, they've got you covered. Call Budge Clinic General Surgery today, 435-716-1950, to schedule a consultation and experience the best possible outcome. Trust Drs. Anderson, Marshall, McKenna, and Peterson, the experts at Budge Clinic General Surgery, helping people live the healthiest lives possible.
Get your cooling fixed, call Gary Riggs. Get your AC fixed, call Gary Riggs. If you're having cooling problems, we're here to get them fixed. Just pick up the phone and call Gary Riggs. 435-512-6633. We'll come to you. Our service fee is low, just $25. We repair all brands and have certified installers. Get your cooling fixed, call Gary Riggs. Get your AC fixed, call Gary Riggs.
If you've lost someone to suicide, you know the feelings: isolation, abandonment, anger. But you should also know that you're not alone. 91% of Utahns say they've been impacted by the loss of a family member, friend, coworker, or neighbor to suicide. And there is support for those left behind. Find resources and connect with others who have similar experiences by visiting liveonutah.org. September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Learn what you can do at liveonutah.org. Supported by the Strong Auto Group.
This is the Sean Hannity Show.
This is not a peaceful anti-war protest. It's a bigoted pro-terrorist, the Hamas wing, if you will, of the radicalized Democratic Party. And it's been in the halls of Congress. It's on college campuses. It's all over Europe. It's all over Australia. And why is this happening? And why are people so afraid to speak out about it?
Weekday afternoons from 1 to 4.